Today's treasures, vinyl. I promised more about vinyl. I decided it's not possible to get through a conversation about vinyl. First of all, there is so much to learn. If you're in your under and you're out shopping for vinyl, trust me, you don't know what you're looking for. If you're 40s to 60-ish, you remember those days of Nautilus, Mobile Fidelity Sound Labs, Sheffield Labs. Who else was out there? Gosh, I don't. You tell me in the comments who I'm forgetting, because as you may or may not know, I grew up in Las Vegas, down the street from the CES show, Consumer Electronics Show. I said that wrong. It's not the CES show. People always do that. It's the CE show or the CES. I grew up in the Vegas of the Wayne Newton era, Engelbert Humperdinck. I didn't get to experience the Rat Pack, but I got to experience Elvis, but never saw him. But anyway, that's my era of audio. So it was vinyl, beautiful LPs, demonstrating audio equipment for customers trying to choose what they were going to do for their home. So these are real audiophile customers now. They're not the, turntable in a suitcase that some of the Gen Z millenniums are buying to experience vinyl. And I think it's great. We have a vinyl store here in Phoenix that reopened, doing a bang up business, but he's not selling the kind of vinyl that I have or that I had at one point. I had 300 pieces of vinyl that I had collected, and they were all virgin vinyl, protected in a plastic sleeve. This is a Kate Bush. This was not a virgin vinyl. This was just a standard printing, but it was one of those nice collectibles that Laura and I had after years of kind of, going through our vinyl. So anyway, let's get to the point. Today, I want to just talk about some of the things in my collection just briefly, but I'm going to focus on dbx Encoded vinyl and why that was or is still important. For those of you that know dbx from, probably your recording studio or professional audio equipment, dbx it started for me in consumer electronics in the early 80s as an expander compression system. So it made quiet sections more robust, and it made dynamic sections really impactful without, just causing distortion. But even that little piece, I think it was called a 3BX, that piece came from the recording studio that was their dbx compression. And then when I got into pro audio, I went to work in the Las Vegas entertainment industry, I guess you'd say. I was a stagehand, okay? IATSE. I forgot the number for IATSE in Las Vegas. Soundman for hire. So I did monitors. I traveled with Wayne Newton. I did front of house, blah, blah, blah. But more importantly, I cut my chops training these in the audio business in Las Vegas. Tech Stereo, Wild West Electronics. Who was the store up north? Not up north, up west. I want to say Listen Up. I think they're in Denver. Anyway, those people all know who those were. But for me, the most important part of my audio life was sneaking into the CES show as a unauthorized dealer. An unauthorized YSL was a Japanese imports brand. Unauthorized YSL distributor, because they took my application and approved me. I was 20 years old or 19 years old distributing their LPs out of my house. Everybody had a side hustle forever. But anyway, the most important part of that experience and growth in audio in my life was sneaking into the suites, not just the CES floor, but where the real high-end audio was kind of tucked away. And it was in the hotel rooms that surrounded the CES rotunda. So this is, Lexus Park at that time, the Hilton Hotel, which is now called the Westgate. They had these small suites where these very esoteric companies that maybe only made a turntable or maybe only made a stereo cartridge. This is where they exhibited their very, very expensive products. So I went for the very first time and met the people that ran Sheffield Labs. I met the people that ran the Infinity audio speakers when they were a very high-end speaker system, and they were, handmade in Southern California. And I remember sitting in a room listening to not what some people know as the $20,000 Infinity reference system, or the IRS, which I think was 9 or 10 feet tall, and it had 4 gigantic panels. I got to listen to the baby brother. And in my mind, I thought, that's what I need to own, because that is the most perfect reproduction of music and sound that I've ever heard. I probably don't need this screen. I'm sorry if it's popped up in your face there. I'm copying some files. But what was important about that experience is not only did I get to listen to a Krell 25-watt Class A amplifier with speaker wires that were about this big on this IRS, I think they call it Infinity Reference 2. Somebody can point it out, or I'll throw in a picture. At that time, I think, the big system was about $20,000. I think the IRS 2 was about $6,000 or $7,000. And I listened to it on the Krell amplifier. I don't remember the preamp. I don't remember the phonocard or the turntable. But I remember Sheffield putting on an album. I listened to the whole album. And this is one of these test tracks, right? Not real music. In this particular case, it was the drum album. So it's one drummer with a microphone, recorded direct to disc. So there's no tape. The audio from the room where the drummer is burned right onto the vinyl master via a lathe. So I have that original drum album because it was a test pressing just for CES. Here, let me get it out of the plastic so you can see that. So this is the drum album. Sorry, they call it the Sheffield Drum Record. If you are collecting vinyl and you think you are an audio person, you need to have this album in any of its versions in your collection. It needs to be the first thing that you listen to decide, does that actually sound like a drum kit, an acoustic drum kit? This is an amazing piece. It's engineered by the man that was part of Sheffield for many years. The producer is Doug Sachs. He also did all of these. So only 2 drummers. One drummer is on one side, one drummer is on the other side. I'll let you do your own homework. Jim Keltner, famous drummer. Ron Tutt, famous drummer. Why? Do your research. Go check it out. It was the album in my life. There was a second one, and I don't own it, but I'll tell you that funny story. I listened to this. I didn't know what I was listening to because I walked into the room as the demo had already started. It gets to the end, and I don't remember on which side. It's either the Keltner side or the Tutt side, obviously. But at the very end, he finishes this basically a long drum solo so that you are hearing all of the tones through your audio system, and that's why it existed, was to judge your audio system. At the very end of it, he clears his throat. And I swore to God, when I heard, I thought somebody was right there. I was all alone in the room, except for the guy far across the room that had control of the preamp. Shocking. It sounded like a human. So not only did I get to help myself become accustomed to what a reference of a drum set should sound like, I already knew what a human voice sounded like. And when this guy clears his throat at the end of that record, it gave me goosebumps. I really thought there was somebody standing right over my shoulder. So that was fun. And so I'll just leave this out for a second. So that led from the Sheffield drum album to number 2 in your collection should be the James Newton Howard Quintet demo. This is also a special CES review pressing. And this features James Newton Howard, who now, he's probably in his 70s, is an acclaimed soundtrack and composer for TV shows and movies. You'll see lots of him. But he was also part of the Toto family on the Porcaro family side. He was never a member of Toto that I know of, but he was in that crowd because when he was hired by Sheffield to do this album, guess who he called to be the band? Steve Porcaro, David Page, Jeff Porcaro, Joe Porcaro. Sound familiar? It is Toto without Lukather. I don't think there's any guitar parts on there. So, and if you've never heard Joe Porcaro, that's Dad. That's Mr. Porcaro, Mr. Toto. He is the father of the boys who founded the band Toto. This album is so dynamic. It has tracks on it that really light up an audio system. And listen, I understand everybody goes to Earth, Wind, and Fire. Everybody goes to Steely Dan for demoing audio. Continue to do that. What I'm telling you is that these albums were recorded in such a way called direct to disc. And so that was, as I mentioned, the band, the mixing console, the lathe that burns it into the vinyl. So if somebody plays a wrong note, somebody knocks over a mic stand, it's either determined to leave it in or you record it all over again. Direct to disc. It is one chance to get it right. Not many bands do it. Tower Power did it. Tower Power has a Sheffield pressing. It is another one of those that needs to be in your demo. So here's what the label looks like if you can find this rare thing that I have that I don't know that I will ever part with, but I might. If you look at the eBay store and it's there, it might be $1,000 because to me, that's what it's worth. I wasn't smart enough to get it autographed at 19. I wonder what year that's from. Don't know, but it had to be, very early 80s. So you got to find that one for a demo. Let's see what else. This is another great one. Another LA studio musician conversation. I'll make it a little quicker, but this one is called the Sheffield Track Record. Rock instrumental tracks for audio component testing and evaluation. This is what we were into in the early 80s. But this features, again, James Newton Howard, Robbie Buchanan, keyboard player, Lenny Castro on percussion, Nathan East on bass. I'm a Nathan East fan still to this day. Nathan is out on the road with everybody, still working. Mike Landau, also still working, great guitarist, best friends of Lukather. Lukather would get the call. He's busy. He'd give it to Mike Landau. Mike Landau came out of the studios just like Lukather. Carlos Vega, drummer, same thing with Jeff Porcaro. Jeff would get the call. I'm too busy. Call Carlos. These are incredible albums. There's 3 albums that you have to add to your vinyl and audio collection. The last one I'm going to mention, this one I'll just mention quickly. I got to meet Lincoln Mayorga, the keyboard player, and this album was from also from Sheffield. Hi, Chris. For Chris, Lincoln Mayorga, Winter CES 1983. How old are you? Last album that you should have, I mentioned it in a little teaser on the Harley, Today's Treasures. You have to have something that helps you set up your tone arm and your cartridge. If you just take it out of the box and start playing, yes, it'll work, it'll play, but you're not maximizing what you've paid for. Especially if you're going to go from, buying a turntable at Best Buy, just on the, couple $100 price range. If you're up into the more esoteric turntables, separate tone arm brand mounted to a turntable that's a different brand, buying a cartridge that's, $500, $600, $700, $800 or more, you need that set up by a professional. They're hard to find, but, there are still very high-end audio shops that are selling the kind of equipment that people play these audio systems on, and they will help you set up that turntable. Because think about what you're dealing with. You've got a platter that's turning at this level. Then you have a tone arm over here that's mounted that has this pitch, and it must be 100% level to the surface of the vinyl. And then you have a small cartridge or a needle, and that cartridge sits in a head on your tone arm that can be moved like this and like this. And all of that affects that very fine point where the needle touches the groove of the record. So it's critical that you have something that helps you set that up. There are a lot of tools, and there's a lot of guys, great companies with YouTube channels that will walk you through all of it. But if you are wise, you'll just get on the phone and take it to a local shop, because you want them to know what you're into and what all of your gear is, because it becomes a real hobby and it's a great community. It was the greatest community that I had in my life until I got into the manufacturing side of consumer electronics. So my particular choice was the Audiophile pickup test record, which was also direct cut. So now this is not something you listen to for fun. These are test tones. These are warble tones. These are white noise. It's testing for channel separation and phasing. Channel separation, white noise levels, silent groove. You want to know how much noise is in your system? Play track 4, which is the silent groove, and you will hear so much garbage that comes out of your audio system. And that's how you know, well, do cables really make a difference? Does an expensive cartridge really make a difference? Yep. And those are the test tracks where you will hear it. Look at that. Tone arm resonance lateral. Tone arm resonance vertical. It's the real deal. So there you go. So those are some must-haves. So I meant to, I spent a little more time there than I meant to, but there was an audiophile process with dbx that they decided, well, if our customers are going to buy our decoding equipment, our expanders and compression units for their home stereos, then we should do another step in the recording of the vinyl or the preparing of the vinyl and encode dbx on to the source material. So there is a very small community of audio enthusiasts, and they are audiophiles, because you will not find a person using a dbx decoder in their audio system that doesn't have a $10, $15, $20, $100,000 audio system. So here is, and a lot of them are classical titles or very, very well recorded pop and jazz titles. I don't know them all. You could certainly ask your AI to give you a whole list so you can start going on the hunt. But here's an example. This is Richard Strauss, and it is a classical album with the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra and Thomas Shippers, sorry if I mispronounced that, is the conductor. But you will see right there, dbx Encoded. So of my 300 titles, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm putting all 5 of those on a lot on the eBay store. So there's one for Handel. I'll just show you really quickly. You see there, dbx Encoded. Liszt, Dvorak, and Smetana. Uh-oh, I hope I didn't screw up the file transfer. That'll suck. Nope, still going. And then there is Berlitz, Bizet, just other composers. I'm probably not pronouncing them all very well. This one was always a favorite, Holst the Planets. Amazing, amazing LP to play, not only to listen to music, because now not only are you learning the reference of your audio system, but you're learning the reference of how a symphony really sounds. This is an incredible album if you can get your hands on it. And then the Strauss that we talked about. So this lot of 5 will be up on the eBay store at some point. Then I had one other. It's a shame because they had a lot more, and I never took the time to buy them when I was working in the industry and could buy them for like $6, $7 a piece. Now they're, $70, $80 per pressing. This is Tip of the Weisberg, Tim Weisberg, which is, I don't think I'd call him pop flute, but he's certainly not, a classical flautist. He's jazz for sure, but he had a pop hit, Dan Fogelberg and Tim Weisberg. I can't remember the name of the song. I know it on guitar. So anyway, Tip of the Weisberg, funny piece of art, flute coming out of the tip of an iceberg because his name is Weisberg. So this is pretty cool. So look for dbx Encoded, but remember, don't buy a dbx Encoded piece of vinyl unless you have a piece of equipment in your system that is called a dbx decoder. Otherwise, you're going to get an LP that sounds very compressed, and you'll be like, well, that doesn't sound anything like FunnARTZ guy Chris Parvin said. So I think that's it for now. I'm going to go into some other pop things that I have. I have a great Fresh Air box set. Anybody know Fresh Air? Love Fresh Air. See the Christmas show. At any age, it doesn't matter. I've been seeing that Christmas show also since the mid 80s. Amazing. I have the UHQR of Earl Klugh. I mentioned it before in the little teaser, but where is that? Yeah, it's a lot to get through. Oh, here's the YSL albums that I was selling from my home. So you could go to any record store in Las Vegas and buy the Eagles' Take It Easy Greatest Hits. It wasn't called, it's their greatest hits, 71 to 75. I imported YSL from my personal collection, but I sold them to friends and some family because I was, getting into the audio business at that point. But this is all pressed on virgin vinyl. And if you know, virgin vinyl means that those vinyl pellets that they smash in the record pressing machine, they've never been anything else. And in America, vinyl was pressed with recycled vinyl. And I always used to say as a salesperson, you don't want your vinyl that used to be, somebody's outdoor lawn chairs. It was a good sales pitch. I don't know if that's where it came from, but it was melted down old records for sure. And so you could take a virgin vinyl LP and hold it up to a very bright light, and you could see through it because vinyl that is virgin, it's a little bit translucent. And then you take like this Kate Bush that's just a standard pressing, can't see through it. The only reason virgin vinyl helps the audiophile experience is because that vinyl has never had anything other than what was impressed upon it when it was manufactured. So it is smooth and it is very quiet, and you can't get better than that. And when you think about you can't get better than that, for me, you can't get better than a UHQR pressing of any title that you want by Mobile Fidelity Sound Labs. I only have one. I'm pretty sure I just sold the others. I had Pink Floyd. I think iRobot was on a UHQR. The only one I didn't have that I need to find, which I know there are retailers out there that have them, is Steely Dan Asia. I would own that as a UHQR, but it's like $150 now. So for me, I'm trying to get rid of, not collect. So it's on my list. It's on my bucket list, but it probably won't be on my ever find it list. Garage sale. That's why I like to go to the garage sales. So there you go. I think somebody asked me on a video the other day, what's your favorite LP that you have? I think this probably is it. As you know, big guitar fan, guitar players. This is the Baked Potato, which is a bar downtown LA. The Baked Potato, still there. You can still go see shows today and probably see some of these guys still playing today. It's a cramped little stage, but it's just where the musicians in Southern California like to go to hang out with their pals on stage and gig. So this one is Baked Potato Super Live. This is what the cover looks like. The album is for the keyboardist, Greg Matheson, but his band that he chose is Steve Lukather on the guitar, Jeff Porcaro on drums, Pops Popwell on the bass, and if you look down, engineered by Jay Graydon, big name. I'm just seeing if anybody else pops out for me, and it was mixed at Sunset Sound, where I got to do a track with Jeff Baxter and Wayne Newton, of all things. Insert hysterical photograph. And it says mix engineers were Steve Lukather and Dave Leonard. So this is amazing. See if I can get this little jacket off. This is my favorite because not because it's amazing sound quality. It's my favorite because the energy of this album. These guys are just in love with what they do. Greg Matheson is the bearded goof here. You can see him. I'm sure he's still sporting that awesome neck beard. Steve looks like a child. And there's Pops on the bass. Hard to see him. I'll zoom in on that a little bit if I can. And then, poor old Jeff Porcaro. He passed a long time ago, but boy, he sure inspired a lot of drummers today. So there's that. There's a picture. I don't know if you can see that. That's the sign at the Baked Potato at that time. And this had to be 80s. I'm going to guess 82. Can we find a date really quick? It's probably under this. 81, December of 81. I was 21 years old. So cool. All right, that's it. That's enough for vinyl. I got some more. Maybe we'll put up some shorts of vinyl. Let me know what else you want to know. I can certainly direct you to some of the resources that I've found over the years because there sure is a lot of them. Thanks a bunch, and have fun out there looking for art. FunnARTZ. It's fun because it's art. I wish I could use some of that track from Sheffield. I will get a strike against me. No music. Cheers.
Makeup.
I don't need makeup.
Do you need makeup?
No, I like my pink skin.